الحمد لله الذي علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على محمد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we will recite together Surat al-Takathur. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir kalla sawfa ta'lamun thumma kalla sawfa ta'lamun كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. صدق الله العظيم. This surah, Surah al-Takathur, is of course a Makki surah. It was revealed before Hijrah, and you could tell by the subject matter of the surah that it is of course a Makki surah, and even the style of rhythm, it's short ayat and it's a powerful reminder, it fits towards the Makki surahs. This surah, in its placement after Surah al-Qari'ah, the wisdom behind it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you all know, al-Qari'ah is a nickname that is given to, of course, Yawm al-Qiyamah. And so as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Yawm al-Qiyamah, the Day of Judgment, and He talks about the conditions of people, that there will be people that will have heavy scales, there will be people that have light scales, right, on the Day of Judgment, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that is the case of the people of the Day of Judgment now, and then He ends it, فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ. The people of Jahannam, what is it that led them there? What is it that distracted them from preparing for the Akhirah? Alhaakumut takathur. That is what distracted them from preparing and made them from the people of hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's using the voice of like a harsh tone, or let's not say harsh tone, but a reprimanding voice in this surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Alhaakum. Alhaakum, it means shagalakum. You have been distracted by at-takathur. Al-hakum comes from lahu. Things that a person will entertain themselves with, enjoy themselves with, that will take them away and turn them away from ibadah, for example, or what is better for them to do. Al-hakum shagalakum at-takathur. At-takathur comes from the word kathir, which means what? What does it mean, kathir? A lot. It means a lot, right? Takathur ala wazn tafa'ul is when there is sort of a tafa'ul happening. It's happening between two different people. Okay? So there's two people doing it, and they're competing with one another and getting more and more and more of the dunya. And they're competing with one another and getting more wealth. Who has more wealth? Who has more status? Who has more children? Who has a better family? Who has a better tribe? They would compete with each other in these things. And even people to this day, they compete with one another. Oh, that person, he has a nice house, I need a nice house. This person has a nice car, I need a nice car too. This person, oh, they did a wedding this big, I need to do my wedding just as big. This person has a nice watch, I need a nice watch. Constantly what? Competing. What do they say? What's the English phrase? Like the Robinsons. What? Keeping up with the Jones. Robinsons is a movie. Astaghfirullah. It's a children's movie. Keeping up with the Joneses, right? You want to know, oh, they just bought a nice car, I want a nice car too, right? So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning us of. Alhaakum shagalakum at-takathur. Constantly competing each other with getting more and more of the dunya. And then not only that, but showing off to each other. There's a sense of tafakhur, that like, oh, I have better than you, I have more than you, I'm better than you. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he read this, as in the hadith of Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, the son of Adam, he will say, my wealth, my wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, this is what the son of Adam, he says, my wealth, my wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَلَيْسَ لَكَ مِن مَالِكَ, and none of your wealth is for you except what you've eaten and consumed, what you've worn and it's gotten old, and what you've given in charity, and what you've kept in stock for yourself. Everything else, all of the money that we keep in our accounts, the hundreds of thousands of dollars, the millions of dollars, just letting you know, you're not going to use it. A lot of people, they die without using any of their wealth. In fact, their children, when they inherit that wealth, they fight over each other, and then mashallah, the family becomes disunited, all because of that wealth. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. That busied you from what was better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even say what it busied you from. It busied you from all sorts of good. It busied you from learning Quran, busied you from prioritizing what you should have prioritized. Rather, you kept chasing after getting more and more of this dunya. حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. You have been busied with this dunya, trying to compete with one another and getting these worldly possessions. حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. Immediately the ayah after, until you visit the graves. He doesn't even put a different ayah or in between. It's immediately. What is this trying to allude to? That the dunya is so short, that you wasted your time busying yourself chasing after the dunya, when what you were chasing after was so short and so meaningless. That literally the ayah immediately after says, حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. Until you visit the graves. Until you visit the graves, زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. By the way, every surah in the Quran has a unique word to it, by the way, okay? Every surah has a unique word. Surah al-Takathur, Takathur, this only comes once in the Quran, okay? Zurtum only comes once in the Quran. Al-Maqabir only comes once in the Quran. Qubur comes several times. Maqabir comes only once as well. And there's always some hint of balagha in it, and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses this unique word versus other words. Then you have to go into a deep discussion of balagha. You have to be أهل لأن تتكلم فيه وأهل لأن تسمع وتفهم. So I'll leave those very let's say specific points perhaps for another time, or maybe I'll mention some of it. حتى زرتم المقابر. Until you what? زرتم, until you visit the graves, is kinaya. It's talking about death. When you visit the graves, meaning when you die, right? You will be you busy yourself with this dunya until what? You die. Or it means عبر بزيارتها عن التفاخر بمن فيها. It is said that there were two tribes. They were doing tafakhur with one another. Oh, I have more than you, I have more than you, I have more than you. Until they started counting the people, the wealth, everything, until they got to the graves. They said, oh, let's see the graveyard, who has more. They got to that extent of showing off to one another, that two of those Arab tribes, or they said the Yahud, depending on the sabab nuzul and the riwayat, that they were arguing with one another and showing off with one another, competing with each other, and who has more graves. Subhanallah. To that extent, they were showing off with the dunya. And there's a third opinion. It means actually visiting the graves. Okay, so ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا. No. سوف تعلمون. You will soon know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is warning us. And then He says, ثم كلا. Then again, no. You will soon know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats it twice. And so the second one is greater than the first one. كلا سوف تعلمون. The first one is talking about the qubur, when you are in the grave. No. You will soon know when you are in the grave. You'll see. That thing that you were preparing, that thing, that wealth that you were gathering, that dunya that you were chasing after, none of that is going to benefit you now. None of that. You'll find out in the grave. ثُمَّ, again, كَلَّا, no, سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. You will find out on the day of judgment. The first one is talking about in the barzakh. The third one is talking about al-akhirah, yawm al-qiyamah. Okay? So this surah, it talks about all stages of a person's life. It talks about when the person is in the dunya, they are busied with what? They are busied with gathering wealth. And then it talks about the barzakh. And look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, zurtum. When you visit someone, do you stay for long or do you leave?
You leave.
You leave, right? So when you go to the grave, it's as though you're just going and visiting and coming out, right? So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word zurtum. And then it talks about, of course, a person's life in the akhirah. So it talks about all stages of a person's life. It also is mentioned another opinion. كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ is the first one is a warning for the kuffar. Then ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ is a warning for the believers to wake up and to remain on the straight path. كَلَّا كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. No, soon you will know. Know what? What is the maf'ul here? What is Allah talking about? What is Allah talking about? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept it vague. He said, no, you will soon find out. You will soon know. What is that thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to? What is the maf'ul that is mahdoof? Some opinions that the scholars mention, you will find out what is to come. You will find out what is going to happen on the Day of Judgment. You will find out. Or you will find out that the Quran was true. And the lives you were living, that falsehood you were living, that chasing after the dunya you were living was false. And the Quran and the message of the Quran and the way to look into the world with the lens of the Quran was the truth. أو تعلمون أنكم كنتم على خطأ. Or it means كلا, no, you will soon know that you were in a mistake. كنتم على خطأ. You were in a mistake because you were busy with the dunya. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reason He hid it is so that a person could have some sense of khawf. That, كلا سوف تعلمون. You will find out. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, you will find out, that is something to be scared about. You know, when, for example, a parent, they get mad at their child, they say, you're going to find out when we go home. You're going to be really scared. You're like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen. My PlayStation's going to be taken away. I'm going to get a beating or something. I don't know what's going to happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbul Izzah, He's saying, you will soon find out. That is something that should scare someone, right? لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عِلْمَ الْيَقِينِ. If you were to know with ilm al-yaqeen, which is like certainty, knowledge with certainty. لو تعلمون لازدجرتم واستعدتم للآخرة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's basically saying that if you were to know, then you would have prepared for the akhirah. If you were to know what is to come from the life of the barzakh and then in the akhirah, you would prepare for the akhirah and you would not be distracted by the dunya, distracted by at-takathur. Ilm al-yaqeen over here is al-ilm alladhi la yushakku fi. Knowledge where there is no doubt in it. And as Zamakhshari, he mentions, it's knowledge when you see it. ليس الخبر كالمعاينة. Right? When you hear something, it's different than when you see something. When you see something, you get a level of knowledge which is higher than if you were to just hear it. For example, someone can hear about Mecca all their lives, but as soon as you go there, you see the Kaaba, you see the Tawaf, you see all of that, you of course you have a better understanding of it, right? So similarly, ilmul yaqeen, you will truly have that certain knowledge when you see it for your own eyes. But then it's too late to do anything. Right now, we all have a chance to change ourselves. Right now, we have a chance to stop being busied with the takathur, chasing after and competing with the dunya, and to focus on what? The akhirah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَتَرَوُنَّ الْجَحِيمِ. You will certainly see the hellfire. You will certainly see the hellfire. And this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَاقِبَةَ أَمْنِكُمْ. He said, then you will soon see the hellfire. Some say it's referring to all people, and some say it's referring to kuffar specifically. And if it's referred to specifically kuffar, that you will certainly see the hellfire, it means that you will see the hellfire when you enter in it. You will see the hellfire when you enter in it. ثُمَّ لَتَرَوُنَّهَا. Then you will see it عَيْنَ الْيَقِينِ, with an eye of certainty. Okay? عَيْنُ الشَّيْء means نَفْسُهُ وَذَاتُهُ. When I say عَيْنُ الرَّجُلِ, right, it means I'm talking about that specific person. عَيْنُ الْيَقِينِ means with complete certainty and complete knowledge. لَتَرَوُنَّهَا عَيْنَ الْيَقِينِ. ثُمَّ then لَتُسْأَلُنَّ. You will be asked يَوْمَئِذٍ, on that day, عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. You will be asked on that day of all of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So some of the scholars, they give interpretation. What is al-na'im referring to here? Some say al-amn was-sihha, safety and health. Some say al-ta'am was-sharab, the fact that we have food and drink. That's what we will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. But the truth is, it's al-umum fi kull ma yutaladdadu bih. It is everything that a person enjoys in the dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us about all of it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in a hadith, he said, a house that gives you shelter, a thawb that you clothe yourself, a piece of garment that you clothe yourself with, a piece of bread that you give your qalb itminaan and you fulfill your hunger with. Everything other than that is a blessing. Now think about all of the blessings that we all live in nowadays. We have running water, hot water, cars, easy fast food, grocery stores, we have jobs, we have a community, we have a masjid with a roof, AC, Allahu A'lam how many blessings we are living in. Wallahi, we cannot even count how many blessings we all live in. The person with the least in our day and age and in our society, mashallah, would be considered a ghani, a rich man back then. The fact that the Prophet ﷺ, كما تعلمون, he would never eat to his fill with barley bread. And we, mashallah, eat to ourselves, to our fill with Bengali fish, and we eat to ourselves, to our fill with, pulao and all these different food items with meat and fish and chicken and all of that. The Prophet ﷺ didn't even have food, consecutive food with barley bread. He could not fill his stomach. So we can never complain about all of the blessings, and we will be asked about them. The Prophet ﷺ, one day he was eating with the Sahaba some fresh dates, and he was drinking water. And he said, هَذَا مِنَ النَّعِيمِ الَّذِي تُسْأَلُونَ عَنْهُ. This is from the blessings that you will be asked about. Water and dates. Water and dates. For us, that is a meal that like anybody would eat, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, this is the blessing that you will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. So we have to ask ourselves, how many blessings has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given us? And we need to remind ourselves that we do not busy ourselves so much with the dunya that we forget our purpose here, which is وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That we do not get so busy with our work life, with all of that we forget to have a relationship with the Quran, forget to have a relationship with the masjid, increase our knowledge of Islam, realize that the money that we have stored up is not going to benefit us. Sometimes people, they even store it so that they can benefit their kids, and their kids end up fighting over it. Rather, we should be people that have a bigger vision in mind, that know that this dunya is faniya, this dunya is to end. So why waste so much of my effort, so much of my time, so much of everything that Allah has blessed me with, and chasing after something that is so temporary, that it will just go away. Rather, we should focus on building something. A smart investor is someone who invests in something long-term. The long-term investment for a believer is what? Al-Akhirah, Al-Jannah. So I want you to sit and think of some of the lessons that you've thought about in this surah, and I'll mention a few. One lesson that we can take is that we should work, of course, in the dunya. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. قُولُوا آمين. We should work in the dunya, of course, but we should not be so excessive. Sometimes people, they're so obsessed with money chasing that, wallahi, if you look at their 24/7 schedule, if you look at their schedule, majority of their time is spent chasing after money. When are you going to raise your kids? Some parents, they make so much money, but they don't spend a single moment with their kids. What use is your money? So some people spend so much time making money that they don't even have that time to go learn the basics of their religion. Some people, they have so much money, they don't even have enough time to spend with their families, in the masjid. Right? Wallahi, it's a khasara. So work, but don't make that so much of a priority in your life that you forget everything else that's supposed to matter. Right? A Muslim is supposed to have prioritization, fiqh al-awlawiyat. Another thing, لِيَكُنْ هِمَّتُكَ فِي الْكَيْفِ وَلَا الْكَمِ. That you should focus on the quality and not the quantity. At-Takathur. Focus on the quality of things and not the quantity. People, they love, for example, I'll give an example. Someone, mashallah, he likes to be known as someone who has lots of knowledge. So what he'll do, 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, 4 degree, 5 degree, oh mashallah, I have PhD, second PhD, third PhD. I'm Ustaz, Doctor. Talk to me with respect. Or, mashallah, he'll focus on so much, but when you really look at it, what has this person accomplished? Very little. He just chased after titles, chased after things, and similar to ibadah. Don't think about, I want to be that one guy who, mashallah, he fasts all the time, he is salah, he does all the sunnahs, but mashallah, no khushu' in your salah. You don't even know the meaning of Fatiha. You don't know. What's the quality of your salah? Don't focus so much on quantity. Focus on also quality. Right? That's what a believer... Quantity is obviously good too. There is place in it in deen. You're supposed to read lots of Quran, pray lots of salah, but do not do so much sacrificing quality as well. Number 3, takathur is of course madhmoom in umur ad-dunya. Seeking a lot, competing in terms of affairs of dunya, wealth, status, all of that. But in affairs of religiosity, in affairs of goodness, it is actually something that is praiseworthy. For example, if you compete with each other in Quran, That's something beautiful to compete with. If you compete with each other and who gives more sadaqah, if you compete with each other and who does more sawm, if you compete with each other in righteousness, in good things, that is something that is praiseworthy. So don't think that al-hakum al-takathur, you have been busied with chasing after and the dunya and trying to get more and more, is related to affairs of religiosity. It's talking about affairs of dunya. Okay, al-kathra laysat mi'yaran li mahabbatillah. How much you have is not a sign of how much Allah loves you. Don't be foolish enough to think that because you have more wealth than others, that Allah loves you more than others. Don't ever think for a moment that because Allah gave you more wealth, that for some reason you are chosen and Allah gave you a special status among people. This is rizq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives rizq to whoever He wishes. If it was based off of love of Allah, then who would be the richest person ever? Fir'aun, astaghfirullah, come on. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No, that's fine. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would be the richest if it was based off of mahabba of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He would be the poorest of the poorest of the poorest of the poor. Of course, that's pretty much bil khulasa, the tafsir of Surah al-Takathur. If anybody has any lessons that they want to reflect on this surah and some of the meanings that they've understood and can apply. Subhanallah. Do not have hasad for people. Do not look at people bi'ayn al-hasid. Just, if you see someone has something, make dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and increase them. Don't think, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. Just live with, what's the word? Contempt? Right? Contempt, right? Content. Sorry, contempt is something bad. Content. Being content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Qana'a. هذه اسمها قناعة. الطمع ضر ما نفع. Right? Being greedy is always harmful. It never benefits anyone. Right? So when you look at the blessings that Allah has on people, don't think, oh, why I wish I have that. You also have blessings. So count your blessings versus counting others. And when it comes to looking at affairs of dunya, look at people below you. When it comes to looking at affairs of religion, look at people above you. Any other lessons? No? وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل واجعلنا من أهل القرآن. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.